right now. Okay. Just a minute. We are live on Facebook right now. Hello officially to everyone, and also the ones that cannot be here in Zoom but are in Facebook. We are here with Silvia Foti. She's a journalist, creative writer, a teacher, and mother. She's the author of the book The Nazi's Granddaughter: How I Learned My Grandfather Was a War Criminal. So we are so honored to be here with you and to hear your perspective, all your discovery, and how it gets this like transcendently, you know. So thank you so much. I will. How are you, Sylvia?
I'm fine. It's sunny in Chicago, but it's cold. 28 degrees here.
Wow. Yes, it's cold. Here in Mexico, it's not that cold. You know, we don't have those temperatures, but we are here. We have from United States in this meeting, from Canada, Johnny from Canada, from Mexico, and also we have from Poland, Magdalena. So, okay. Sylvia, I want to first ask you, why did you decide to write this book about your grandfather?
It's a complex. You would think that would be a very simple answer, but it's not. My mother, I grew up always watching my mother wanting to write this book about her father. The people in the Chicago community and in Lithuania had been expecting her to write the book about her famous grandfather, this World War II hero in Lithuania who fought against the communists. And he loved Lithuania very much and always wanted Lithuania to be free and independent. But in the year 2000, she went to the hospital again. She was 60 years old at the time, and she had gotten sick. I really, you know, at the time, I thought she would come in and out because she was in and out of the hospital a lot for all kinds of tests. She had diabetes and a bad back, and I thought it would be one of those days again. But when I went to visit her in late January 2000, I went into her hospital room and she was in bed, and I thought, wow, she looks not good. And I got very scared, and she called me to her bed and held my hand and said, Sylvia, you have to write the book. And I was more concerned about why she was saying that, because she was already accepting what was happening to her, and I was not accepting it. And I said, no, 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 you're going to write the book. You're going to be fine. You're going to come out. Everything will be okay. But she continued to hold my hand. And, you know, I was looking outside the window. We were facing Marquette Park. She was in a hospital facing Marquette Park, and it was snowing outside. And I just thought, you know, I almost prayed to God at that point. And I said, God, I'm just going to say yes to her, because this will just make her feel good in this moment, but she's going to be okay. Okay, God? Okay. Well, then she went to sleep. And the next day I came back and she was in a coma. And that was it. She died 2 weeks later on February 4th, the year 2000. And here I was with this insane deathbed promise. And so that's how it started. That's how I decided to write the book.
Wow. Yes, I think it's so difficult, right? Because your mom asked this for you, and you were like, okay, this is a huge responsibility or a huge work, a huge job to do it. But yes, can you now tell us a little bit about the story of your grandfather? Like, what story did you know before doing this book, and what did you discover? I know it's a long story, but you know, if you can tell us a summary of what you discovered, it will be so interesting.
Yeah, you know, I only knew what I have been calling his heroic side, heroic to Lithuanians anyway. You know, and I always heard his story backwards, starting from his death. He was in the KGB prison for 2 years, tortured by the communists, and he died at the age of 36. So he died a very young man, and he died a martyr for the country, and he suffered and he was tortured. Before that, he was leading a rebellion against the communists. He was trying to organize all the partisans to join together and fight the communists. And the KGB found him. They were, you know, they had spies all over the place, and they found him, and then they took him into that prison. Before that, he was in the Studhof concentration camp for 2 years. The version I heard is that, you know, he was defending Jews, and this is why he was in this Studhof concentration camp. Before that, he was the head of Šiauliai district. He was the district chief of Šiauliai, which is like you know, the second largest region in Lithuania in the northwestern side. And this was during the Nazi occupation, but the version I, you know, had was that he was fighting for Lithuania and kind of acting like a double agent. And then before that, he was the leader of the uprising in that area in Žemaitija in the northwestern part of Lithuania, in this uprising against the communists. And they won Lithuania back against the communists. So, you know, I grew up, you know, he's a very good looking man. He likes to write. He was in the military. He fought against the communists in these 2 rebellions, uprisings twice. And he was in a Nazi concentration camp. And he was in a KGB prison. And all this only at the, you know, until the age of 36.
Yes, I think we have here the photo of him, but yes, that's what you knew before, right? Like, okay, he died for his country, he was tortured and all this, but what did you discover, right? I mean, while you were investigating and searching for this book.
Yeah, this picture, by the way, is the day of his wedding with my grandmother.
Oh.
So
He was really handsome.
He is. My grandmother said that she married him, you know, partly because he looked like a Hollywood movie star. So
Wow.
Your grandmother was also very beautiful. You look like her.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they were a very handsome couple. And
you're a photocopy of her.
Thank you. So you know, it was a very romantic story, I thought. And I thought, yeah, you know, I was a journalist at the time, and I was very, you know, sad that my mother, you know, had died. But I thought maybe this is a good project for me to have. Like, it's sort of, you know, in my grief, I kind of felt still connected to my mother, and I thought that I could get to my in Lithuania. So in October 2000, still that same year, no, actually I should say this, in July 2000, my grandmother was on her deathbed. She survived my mother by like 5 months, and she says, Sylvia, what's going on with the book? Are you going to finish it? And I said, don't worry, I'll finish it. I'm young. At the time I was, you know, 38. And I said, I'm not going to let it go like Mom did. I'll get it done. Don't worry. And then she takes my hand and says, don't write the book. Just let history lie. There's no need to dig around in there. And had no idea what this meant, why she would say this. And I said, I have to, you know, I promised Mom, of course I'm going to write the book. And she didn't like my answer. So she just rolled over, you know, faced the wall and gave me her back. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to let her rest and I'm going to go. And then after that, she was in a coma and had, you know, and then died in July. So then in October, we took my mother and my grandmother to Lithuania. They both wanted to be buried in Lithuania, back to the homeland. And my brother, who's in California, and I took, their cremains there. And so we buried them in Vilnius. And then after that, we went to visit the school that he was named after. We were invited to visit the school. And it's in Shukone, a little town way up in northern Lithuania. And it's a grammar school. And it's the Jonas Noreika Grammar School. And my brother and I come in and, you know, all the children are really cute and they're holding their flowers and they're singing, and it's noon and the director's offering beer to us. And, you know, we can't say no, even if it's only noon. And, you know, we're like treated like rock stars there. And then the director says, oh, I'm so happy you're writing this book. I heard you're taking the project over for your mother. You're such a good daughter. And I said, thank you. And he said, and then I said, you know, as long as I'm here, could you let me know, you know, how you ended up naming the school after my grandfather? And he says, well, we used to have a Russian name. And we had to get rid of this horrible Russian name and give it a good Lithuanian patriotic name. And your grandfather was born in Shukone. So, you know, everybody agreed that that would be the perfect name for the school. And I said, oh, okay, well then that, you know, that sounds great. And I thought that would be the end of the story. And then he takes my arm and he says, but you know, I got a lot of grief over naming the school after your grandfather. And I said, why did you get a lot of grief? And he said, from the Jews. And I said, what could the Jews possibly say about my grandfather, my wonderful, magnificent grandfather? What could they say? And he said, he was accused of killing Jews. And he said it, first of all, the words were devastating, but the tone was like, I should have known this. And I almost fainted. That was the very first time I ever heard anything like that. And, you know, I had to sit down. Like, it was like a blow to the gut. And I had to sit down. And I said, I just can't believe this. You know, I just can't believe this. And, you know, then the director's trying to calm me down a little bit. He's like, don't worry. It's all in the past. You know, it's all over. It's just communist propaganda. And so shortly after that, you know, my visit ended in Lithuania and I came back to Chicago. And I asked my family about, did you ever hear these crazy rumors about Jonas Noreika killing Jews? I'm like, yeah, we heard it. I'm like, what? How come I didn't know anything about this? And they're like, well, it's not true. Why would we talk about it? It's not true. It's just communist propaganda. Don't worry about it. Just don't even, and if you're going to write that book, don't mention this. This is not anything to talk about. And I thought, okay. So that was the first indication that there's something not right. And I think I went into denial myself because it was convenient. It was more convenient that way. And I thought, it is communist propaganda. I like that story. That sounds much better than anything else. And so for many years, really, this, you know, it's 20 years now, 20 years later, that this book is coming out. It'll be 21 years by the time the book is out. So, you know, at the time, you know, I was a journalist and, you know, busy with my children and everything. And I didn't really have a lot of time to dedicate this. This was like a side project. And there was no deadline for me to, you know, work on it really fast or anything. So, and my, you know, what I was doing was getting all the information from my mother, and all this behind me, there's like 3 bookshelves behind me. All that is the stuff I brought from my mother's archives to my, you know, to my house. And then, so it took me a long time to bring that over and to go through it. But I would say, you know, and just to say what he had, when he was in that KGB prison, the KGB have transcripts, and say what you will about them, they record everything. And there were 3,000 pages in Russian of these KGB transcripts. And my mother had them translated into Lithuanian. So I was reading them in Lithuanian and then, you know, trying to translate them into English. So that took forever. Literally, that took forever. And then the nicer thing that he had was 77 letters from the Studhof concentration camp to my grandmothers. So these were, you know, prison letters, but they were also love letters. And he wrote a fairy tale to my mother from that prison. So I was reading that. Those were written in German because he had to write them in German in that Nazi concentration camp. And then my grandmother translated them all in Lithuanian. And then I worked on translating them into English. So just lots of, you know, that took years and years and years. So now it's like 2007, 2008 or so. And I come across this pamphlet that he wrote, and I'm going to show it here. And it's in Lithuanian called Pakelk galvą lietuvi, or Raise Your Head Lithuanian. And I thought, what is this? It's written by Jonas Noreika, 1933. And I'm thinking it's going to be, you know, something patriotic. And I'm reading it, and it's, I'm like getting very, very upset as I'm reading it, because it's all about boycotting the Jews in Lithuania. Don't buy any products from Jews. The Jews are the foreigners. Why do they have all the good businesses? Those businesses should all belong to Lithuanians. This is not right. Don't buy anything from Jews anymore. So it's 32 pages of this. So when I finished this, I was ill. I was sick to my stomach, and I thought, this is not going to help. You know, this is not going to help. So, but then I saw something that my grandmother had written, and she had written in Lithuanian, 22 metų vyrukas, 22-year-old young man. So it's like my grandmother appeared from her grave and told me he was just 22. He didn't really, you know, he's just a hothead. You know, you don't have to take this too seriously. So, and he didn't ask to kill Jews in here. He was asking to boycott their businesses. So I was already rationalizing. And so, but again, you know, by this point, I thought, you know, I'm a journalist and I'm going to have to address this. It's not like I can not address it. So, but maybe I'll exonerate him. So I was trying to convince myself that I'll just prove that, you know, that none of this is true. So, so that's how I convinced myself to just look into all this. And then I decided I had to go, you know, I was having trouble writing it as a straight biography. I was trying to write it as just a chronological biography of his life. And it was not working. It was not working. It was not working. And at that point, I convinced myself to get another degree. Well, first I convinced myself to become a teacher so that I could have the summers off. So I became a high school English teacher just to have the summers off so I could work on this book. And then after I got that degree, I decided to get a creative writing degree, creative nonfiction. And that's where they convinced me, my professors, that I should make this a memoir and make this a story about my journey in trying to figure out who my grandfather was. And they were like my mentors. They also said, the story is about the Nazi occupation. Forget everything else. And you need to really dig into that. And what you are finding is just the tip of the iceberg. So you brace yourself, because you're going to find some stuff you're not going to like, but it's going to be a good story. So, so with their help, I would say that was a big turning point for me, is going into that creative writing program. And that changed everything for me and my approach and everything. And it gave me some courage. I had some structure and some courage, I guess, to look into this. So then I found this book. And this is called Masinė žudynės Lietuvoje, or Massive Slaughter in Lithuania. And it's about the Holocaust in Lithuania. So I'm opening it up and I'm looking at the index and I'm like, please don't let me see Jonas Noreika. Please don't let me see Jonas Noreika. I don't want to see Jonas Noreika. And there he is, Jonas Noreika.
Wow.
So I opened it up and this is where I find orders that he had written as district chair of Cholet. And this was it. This was the turning point where I said, okay, now this is it. And this is an order from August 22nd, 1941. And he's asking all of the Jews living throughout all of the Cholet region to be rounded up and brought to a ghetto in Jagare. And then, in October, they were all slaughtered. And so after I saw this, I said, okay, this is it. Now I'm angry that I was lied to about his role in all this. And I'm going to finish this if it's the last thing I do. And I vowed to myself, I don't care what I find, I'm going to find it and I'm going to publish it. I'm going to get it published. And
I think it's so brave of you, because of course he had this important but terrible role in World War II and Holocaust. We all know that this is so terrible, but I think it's so brave of you to bring out all this story so this never happens again, right?
Yeah. Yes, I think it's very important that the truth be faced. And I am like, every other Lithuanian who doesn't want this to be true. But if it's true, then you got to face it. Because in some ways it's been so traumatic to discover this horrible, horrible truth, and then to be lied to about it. And then to go from thinking he's a hero to, finding out what a horrible person he was. Like, that's very traumatic too. So the lying is horrible as well. I mean, what he did is, there's no doubt how bad it is, but then the covering it up is also bad.
Yes, of course. Well, normally
You take questions?
Yes.
There is a question there, Eva. You want?
Normally we answer questions at the end, but I want Eva to ask you right now the question she has.
Of course.
Yeah, I understand how traumatic this must have been for you to find this out. And your aunt did not want you to write the story because she knew the truth.
My
But
grandmother, his wife.
when your mother asked you to write the book, did she want you to stay in ignorance and write the book about him as a hero, your grandfather, or did she want you to, you think, dig and maybe uncover the truth?
That's a really good question, and I can only guess at the answer because I'm not sure. I finally decided she must have heard these rumors. And it was my grandmother who asked me not to write the book, not my aunt, my grandmother, his wife, my mother's mother.
Yeah.
So it's even worse. My mother was 2 years old in 1941. So I don't think she really knew. I don't think she knew. I think my grandmother knew. I think my grandmother knew though. So I think my mother, as she was writing this book, interestingly, when at the age of 55, she got her PhD in literature. And that's a very late age to get your PhD. And, at that point, I didn't get it, but having walked in her footsteps and struggling with the story, I also went for another writing degree. So I think she got that PhD in literature to wrap her head around trying to write this story. But because she was the daughter, I don't think there's any way she could have done it. There's no way. As hard as it was for me, I never really knew him. Yeah. I mean, he died 14 years before I was born, and it was almost, it was very heartbreaking for me. It was very heartbreaking for me. But for my mother, it would have completely shattered her. But my mother had not faced this either. I think she was in a lot of deep denial over it. So when she gave me the story, I don't think she took she just had all this in mind. I think she was just thinking, I didn't do what I was supposed to do about my father. I'm going to pass it to my daughter and hope she can do it. She just kind of passed this story on to me. I don't think she would have wanted me to dig into all this, to tell you the truth. I don't think she would have. My grandmother definitely didn't want to. And my mother probably would not have wanted me to. But because they were both gone, I was able to, because if they were alive, I would have never written this. I would have never done it. They would have convinced me, they would have stopped me, and I would have bowed to their wishes if they were alive. I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Well, I want to thank you for having the courage to dig and to write this book. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Ava.
I have a question at the beginning. You didn't know your grandfather, you know your grandmother and your mother, but when you started, you describe in your book that you have your life like if there was your grandfather was all the time with you. You have it in the living room, you have it in the room, you have it all the time. It was like knowing him like a hero. It's like for a person, it's the most important people in your life. It was more important that your father, because you describe it for your mother, she talks like that. It was more important than anything else. And suddenly you start, you have the option to write the book. It passed many times, and you start with the book, and suddenly you found something disgusting about your father. Many people will say, all right, I don't want to know. I just wanted to write because he's my hero. Forget about being the hero that will speak later of a country. It's my personal hero. It was like holding my hand all the time. So what did after, and in the first year you didn't find anything about Jews and anything about that, but you know, what did inspire you to continue this labor when you already knew that maybe be something that could put black in your father's, in your grandfather's image?
I have a defect, and it's called I'm a writer.
Right.
And
many writers write what they think, and they can't stop when they don't like what they are writing or goes against what they are thinking.
Yeah, I just it was like a magnet. I tried to stop. I tried to put it away. I tried to not write it, but it just always drew me back like a magnet. And I just, You know how you watch those movies and there's somebody horrible in the basement and that woman goes down into the basement, down the stairs, and everybody's screaming, "Don't go in the basement, don't go there, they're gonna kill you." I'm the one that goes in that basement. So I think it's just, I had to know. And it's a very compelling story. And, you know, part of it is I'm American too. So I, you know, was raised in a very free democratic society. So I felt I was in a safe place to write it. As painful as it all is, I felt like I could, if anybody could do it, I could do it just from the circumstances of my life.
And about that, I know Samantha, if somebody else have, if it was not you, but somebody else who wrote this story, what will you think about it? It's a lie, it's a communist, he's against us. What will you be thinking about? You didn't investigate. If somebody takes the book and says, I have here the book, General Storm, the hero or criminal, and somebody else did it, not you. What would you be thinking about it?
I would be very upset. You know, and that was part of the reason I was thinking, if anybody's going to do it, it should be his granddaughter, because it's going to carry more weight that way. And if somebody else did it, I would be very upset with myself, because I have a background in journalism. I'm a writer. I would have called myself a coward, and I would have been kicking myself if I didn't do it.
Sam?
Oh, yes. Why do you think in Lithuania he was considered as a hero, or he actually kind of is?
Yeah, he's still considered a hero. That's a very complicated question, but I think the big thing is, you know, Lithuania was subjugated by the Soviet Union from 1945 to 1990. So for those 45 years, it was not allowed to dig into its own past. It was allowed to do whatever the Russians told them to do. And the Russians also said, they called the Jews Soviet citizens. They didn't even call them Jews. They just called them Soviet citizens. So that covered it up. The Russians also tried to cover it up. And I know the Russians liberated the camps, you know, in January 27th, but they were also known to be very anti-Semitic too. So, so anyway, I think that because the Soviet Union had occupied Lithuania for those 45 years, that sort of put everything in a deep freeze. And so nothing could be investigated during those 45 years anyway. And so in 1990, Lithuania finally got its freedom from the Soviet Union. And I think, you know, like anyone who's been in a very traumatic situation, it takes a while to kind of get out of this occupation mode and feel like you actually have this freedom and you can do it. So there's just all that. Then layer on top of that, I think, is the patriotism. What they label as patriotism and nationalism, and that is to protect the reputation of Lithuania at all costs, no matter what. And we cannot make Lithuania look bad. So, and then layer into that just straight out denial. They just can't believe that this happened. Their story was, it was the Nazis and not the Lithuanians. So it's at least those three factors and probably more. And then on top of it, I think that there is a conscious cover up by some people in the government to hide this. And we have a member. I was just going to say, we have a member in our audience, Grant Goshen, who is, you know, really instrumental in uncovering what the government has been trying to cover up. He's suing, he has been suing the Lithuanian government for Holocaust distortion and denial about my grandfather, asking them to remove the honors on my grandfather. And I, you know, I wrote a letter of support in there too. And he's taking this all the way to the European Court Commission, this whole thing. So it was, you know, this little family story is now like blowing up into this big international issue.
Wow. Yes, because I think the question is like, why is he considered a hero? You know, because he also has he had a plaque, right, in Lithuania. He was like, I don't know, so important for them. So it's like amazing, right? I think it was because he was a soldier that fought in the war, right, or something like that. But it's, you know, it's not understandable for us to consider him as a hero after knowing all the things you have discovered, right?
Right, and this actually, the plaque has a lot of history already. This is not even the original plaque. I don't know if you know what happened with what was going on with the plaque because of all this. The original plaque was put in 2000, and then over a year ago, someone running for the European Parliament took a sledgehammer and hit the original plaque 14 times. And, you know, it like shattered to pieces, and he became considered a criminal in Lithuania for shattering that plaque. And then the Patriots, within months, put up this new and improved plaque and has it up there. So this is the new and improved plaque.
Wow. Well, I want to ask you, like, if you know, why did he started persecuting Jews, you know, if from the region? Like, why? Do you know?
Sorry, before you answer that, I would like to add that many said that it was, he started to persecute Jews, but that it was about orders from the Nazis, that he didn't do it by himself. What do you think, both of it? Just to complement Sam's question.
Yeah, that is what the Genocide Center, which is defending him, Lithuanian Genocide Center is defending him, saying he just did what the Nazis asked him to do. I think he agreed with what the Nazis were asking him to do. I think he was a very strong-willed man, and if he was asked to do something that he did not want to do, he would stand up and say, I'm not going to do this. And in fact, there were others who did not want to kill Jews, and nothing happened to them. They really were not killed. They were not punished. And he could have done that. And he chose not to. And I think he chose not to because he agreed with them. I think he was never technically a Nazi. He never really joined the Nazi party. But you know, the word Nazi today, its meaning has expanded. So if you were a Nazi collaborator, people are calling you a Nazi anyway. So he definitely collaborated with them before he became that district chair. And during that time, under his watch, you know, I looked into Plunge the most, I would say. That is the city that I looked into the most. But he also was involved in killing Jews in Telšiai and killing Jews in the Šiauliai region. Then Jews died in the ghetto of Šiauliai, but he wasn't technically in charge of that ghetto because he was in charge of the region. So people now say the mayor was in charge of that. But he was part, there was a machinery of Lithuanians involved in killing Jews, willing Lithuanians. And I say this because after the Battle of Stalingrad in 1943, the Nazis tried to get Lithuania to join the SS. And my grandfather and 45 other men said, no, Lithuania is for Lithuanians and they are never going to join the Nazis and they're never going to become SS. And for that, he was brought to Studhof concentration camp. So because of his nationalism, he could stand up and fight. But for Jews, he did not.
Yes, actually, I was going to ask you that. Why did he was taken to the Studhof concentration camp? Why, and what things do you know that he experienced there? How was it to be there?
He was brought with 45 other men, and they were brought there because of defying the Nazis and trying to get all of Lithuania to defy joining the SS. So they never got Lithuanians to join the SS. And this is, you know, a proud moment for Lithuania, but it still doesn't compare to their role in killing Jews. And so in the Studhof concentration camp, for 6 weeks, these 45 men suffered like everybody suffers in a concentration camp. It was horrible. Half of them died. They were beaten. They were tortured. They were starved. It was bad. And then half of them died. But within 6 weeks, Himmler declared that these Lithuanians will be now honorary prisoners. And this is funny because as a little girl, my grandmother would, would tell me about this. Oh, your grandfather, he was an honorary prisoner in Studhof concentration camp. And I thought, oh, what an honor. But then when I was investigating the story, I'm like, wait, Himmler made him an honorary prisoner? There's nothing honorable about being called honorable by Himmler. So what is this? What does this mean? There's no honor in this at all. And so that was another revelation for me too. So after that, their lives were considerably improved. They never got wonderful food, but they didn't have to work. They had freedom. They could just walk around. They had a radio in their barracks. They had clean barracks. They got individual. What?
That's Studhof concentration camp, right?
Yeah, it doesn't look like that now, but yeah. Now it's a museum, so they only have like 1 or 2 barracks up, but yeah. Yeah.
Would you know the name of the concentration camps?
Studhof.
Thank you.
It was in Germany, right?
Poland, yeah.
Poland.
Occupied by Germany, yeah.
Okay.
Now it's Poland.
Okay,
Gdansk, in Gdansk.
In Gdansk. Okay. I think Isaac is going to ask something.
Silvia, we know that in Lithuania, they have a very important Jewish community some time ago. It was very important, we know, cultural and everything, but the Lithuanians didn't feel that they were that the Jews were part of the country. That you describe it also in your book. And also the Lithuanians tried to forget this part of the history and saying it was under the occupation of the Nazis, under the occupation of the Russia. It's like trying to mix the history and to forget something. And you put a lot of that in your book. Tell us a little bit about what you describe about what was to be a Jew. I know your family was not, but how was it in Lithuania, and why all of this hate for the Jews? Remember that also you say it in your book, 95% of the Jewish community were murdered there, no?
Yes, 95% of the Jewish community was murdered in Lithuania, and it's the highest percentage of Jews murdered in all of Europe during the Holocaust. The numbers are about 200,000, but that's 95%. Like if they could eliminate them, they did, and they almost had, 100%. So the Jews in Lithuania kept to themselves. They had their own communities, and they had their own language, and they had their own schools, and they were perhaps more intellectual. They studied harder. They were more professional. They had more businesses, and they very much kept to themselves. Jews didn't want any of their children to marry Lithuanians, and Lithuanians started to feel the same way too. So there was very little, or not enough, I guess, personal interaction between the two groups. So they were living in Lithuania, but they isolated themselves very much. And I think this brought up a lot of resentment to Lithuanians because they saw how successful many of the Jews were becoming. And they were envious, greed. They became greedy and envious, and they thought it wasn't fair. And I think that resentment, found a way to turn into murder under the guise of having these orders from the Nazis. It's like telling a diabetic she can finally have sugar.
Wow.
I think they wanted to do it. And they had full freedom to go ahead and do it. And the worst part of their humanity, if you can call it humanity, came out. And it was sort of, I don't know, I understand it as just, they were some kind of hypnotism or something. It was mad. It was a madness that had overcome the whole country.
Yes, it's unbelievable, right? All the things that happen, and also that greed made them, commit all this murder. It's terrible, but yes, as we have said, it's so brave of you to dig on this story. And when your grandfather came out from the concentration camp, what happened with him? After war.
Yeah, so he was released in January 45. And then he tried to get back to Lithuania, but on his way, he was conscripted into the Russian army. So in May 1945, the Russians took him, made him join their army. And then I don't know anything about his time in the Russian army. I don't know. I couldn't find anything. But he was released from the Russian army, and then he went to Vilnius in November 1945. And then in November 1945, he started connecting with other people who were in Studhof, and they started kind of forming this little rebellion group to rebel against the communists. And I think he was trying to repeat what he did with the Germans in 1941. The uprising against the communists in 1941, with the help of the Germans, was successful, except then the Germans took over. And as they were working with the Germans in 41, the Germans were promising Lithuania would have its freedom, but that was just a big lie. But in 1946, he thought the United States and England would come in and help Lithuania fight against the Russians. And that, of course, never happened either. So he was trying to repeat what happened in 1941 against the Russians again in 1945-46, and it completely failed. And they caught him, and he then was brought into the KGB prison, where he was there almost 2 years.
Now that you are telling us about the KGB prison, can you tell us about that prayer book he had there?
The prayer book?
Yes.
Oh, yes. have it somewhere in my office, but
I think I have the picture because I was reading. Oh no, this is not the picture. I was reading about this, and I
we
think
have the
it's
article.
hold on, I have it.
okay. Well, meanwhile she's searching it, I wanted to show you where was Studhof concentration camp. Studhof is right here. Okay, I'm trying to draw. Okay, right here, Johnny, in
Yeah,
the dance.
he was only 6 weeks there, eh?
6 weeks? What?
He was only 6 weeks in the concentration camp.
No, he was almost 2 years.
Oh,
2
2 years,
years.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, what can you say? What can you tell us about the discovery of that book?
My mother got it from another woman who was the niece of a friend of my grandfather. And she had held this book for like 45 years until Lithuania became free. And it was the prayer book that my grandfather must have had in his pocket while in the KGB prison, I imagine. And it is a, you know, small but very thick. And the pages now are very fragile. They've got like Scotch tape on them. And it's a Catholic prayer book. It has a cross here. And it's Polish though. It's written in Polish. So I was surprised that it was in Polish. And I don't read Polish. Yes, that's a picture of it. So that's his prayer book that he had. He was very, I mean, it sounds ironic, but he was very Catholic. I mean, except for, you know, following the commandment of do not kill. And he wrote a prayer when the Studhof concentration camp. He wrote a prayer that was reprinted in a priest's memoir. One of the men there was a priest, and he wrote a memoir, and he reprinted that prayer. And that prayer now is on my the gravestone of where my mother and grandmother are buried. We were trying to bury my grandfather in that spot, but we could never identify his bones because of the DNA analysis. So in the end, it's just my mother and my grandmother are there.
Yeah. I could not imagine what will happen if somebody tomorrow says in the United States that George Washington was not a hero, that he may be some criminal, or Nelson Mandela, or I don't know, Simon Perez.
Well, Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus.
Let's say Columbus. No, he can discover it, but he did it like he was not a hero. He didn't fight to get a liberty. I don't know, Bolivar in South America. What was the reaction in Lithuania when you take out your book or you start digging and say, wow, and not only in Lithuania and the government, with your friend, you were part of a Lithuanian community in Chicago. And what was the reaction when somebody tells you, George Washington is no more, Noreika is not a hero? What is the reaction?
Anger, a lot of anger, hate, disbelief. You know, I've gotten hate mail, and you know, I'm accused of profiteering and I'm told I'm a KGB spy now.
All right.
I'm a Russian spy now. Still waiting for my millions from Russia. But you know, it's so much, all I can say is it took me about 10 years to really accept the truth. And that's because I was working at it and digging and trying. So if somebody is not even working at it, it's much easier to say it's not true. It takes a lot of, and it took a lot of internal work to come to terms with this. You know, I felt very guilty. Even though I was not even born in World War II, I felt the stain and the guilt of my grandfather in my own soul. And I am trying to atone in some way for his sins, if that's even possible. But I just have this strong desire and strong need to just try and at least reveal what happened and the truth and face it, you know, because I was very proud of him when I thought he was a hero. And I felt like I was a little princess with that story. And then to have that taken away and really to become the most horrible type of person, you know, involved in this genocide, really is so hard. It has been very hard.
Yes, I think it's, of course, a horrible discovery, you know, but I think it's so important, the labor that you're doing, because as you said, this is not just a familiar story. You are like making come out this true story about Holocaust in Lithuania. So I think this is a really important labor that you're doing, because they deny, right, as you said, that this happened in some way. So it's so important internationally what you are doing for preserving the memory of Jews, and to this never happen again, as I said. So I wanted to ask you, why do you think that it's important to know our roots, you know, our ancestors, our roots?
I think it informs us of who we are and where we came from, and it provides context for our lives that I think, you know, everybody, even adopted children, just want to go back and find out who are their real parents. There's just a very strong drive and a very strong need in us to understand where we came from, what is our origin story. And so that was a big part of all this for me too. And I think that, of course, you know, to stop history from repeating its horrors, you have to first understand history. And if you can't even accept it, that it happened, you're going to repeat it. You might even repeat it if you do accept it happens, but you will, you know, there's a chance you might not repeat it if you at least understand and can empathize with the victim. So that is so important. You have to see what really happened, and it has to be unvarnished as possible.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's so important. Well, I will do another meeting for telling my story and my link to Holocaust. But as many of you know, we discovered that, yeah, many of our ancestors or our family was murdered in Poland because they were Jewish. That's also a hard truth to discover, because we didn't know that just 4 years before. But I think that made me like understand more who I am. Where do I come from, you know, where does my family comes from? And as you said, to not repeat the things that happened before that are horrible, you know. And the last question I have for now is that how can the descendants or even the survivors of the how of
The
sorry,
descendants
how
of
can the
the criminal,
descendants
of
or
the perpetrators. You
yes,
refer, no?
how can the descendants of the perpetrators or even the survivors can reconcile with the descendants of survivors? Because, you know, here in this meeting, we have like 2 or 3 Holocaust survivors and also descendants.
Well, I would hope that there can be a reconciliation, but it, you know, on the descendants of the perpetrators part, they have to really accept what happened and the horrible role that their forebears played. If they're in denial over it, there can be no reconciliation. There, you know, So I think it's on the descendants of the perpetrators to really do the hard work of coming to terms with what our grandparents did and the role that they played. And we can try to understand it as much as we want, but ultimately we have to reject what they did. And only after that, I think, can the descendants of the survivors feel that it's safe to even talk to the descendants of the perpetrators. And then I hope after that there can be a reconciliation, because I think we would all hope for that, and hope that history will not be repeated again.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course, Johnny.
Yeah, I as a survivor, I survived 4 years in 6 different concentration camps, including Auschwitz. I can never forgive. I don't hate anymore, but I couldn't forgive. Sorry about it. Thank you.
You feel guilty? You feel guilty for what your grandfather did, or do you think the new generation has to feel a responsibility for what their older generation did?
I think so. It's a hard answer. I think it's very easy to say, I shouldn't feel guilty. It's not my fault. But I do feel guilty, and I do feel sorry. And I think the least we can do is accept what happened. That's the least we can do.
Can I say, as a child of a survivor, I feel as you in a different way, because I carry the pain of all the years of I tried to take away the pain from my father. It haunted him. He had nightmares. He never forgot, and he lived with it every single minute of his life. And I spent my childhood trying to make it better for him, and my adulthood, every single moment of my life. I always tried to take the pain away, and I never could. And I still carry that burden on my shoulders, even though he passed almost 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I still carry this pain with me.
I've seen a documentary once about children of the Nazis who did all the killing, and the reactions are very different. They all feel guilty. Some women never married or got themselves sterilized so that they wouldn't bear any children. I heard of other people who converted to Judaism and went to live in Israel as a reaction. It's very different how people react. I've also met some righteous Gentiles, very Catholic ladies whose fathers or grandfathers were SS, and who dedicated their lives to teaching tolerance and to teaching the Holocaust so that it would never happen again, and who worked for Jewish causes all their lives. And I met 2 of them in Auschwitz on the March of the Living. And they kind of reconciled me somewhat with the hatred that I grew up all my life for Germans. So there are many ways of reacting, but most people feel very guilty and responsible for what happened.
Or they're in denial.
Oh, sorry. How do you deal with the deniers, though? Like you're saying that people actually feel guilty, but there's also a lot of people denying that the Holocaust ever happened, and that is such a horror.
That is unacceptable, but it's either totally stupid or they want to protect themselves from the truth. They don't want to believe that this could have happened.
My belief is, well, of course, we all know that it's not even being taught in most schools. A lot of people don't even know what the Holocaust is. And I think in another 30, 40, 50 years, there's going to be much, much, much more denial than there is now, because all the survivors will be gone and people will just question it. Oh, you know, those movies, those pictures, oh, you know, anybody could have made them up. And that's the problem. And how do we combat that? It's a difficult thing.
Well, I believe that man will destroy this planet anyway, and the Jews will survive and rebuild it.
Mhm.
Look at Israel.
Noah's Ark.
Yes, thank you for the comments. We have a couple questions in the chat, but I want to, before that, just to take a photo of the meeting, because I always keep these photos, you know, of the meetings. So if everyone that doesn't have the camera on, if you can turn it on, it will be nice. So you can be in this photo. So I will take this photo and then we will ask some questions that we have on the chat for Silvia. Okay, well, I'm waiting just a minute for people to turn on your camera if you want. If you can't, don't worry, but okay. Then I will take the photo. 1, 2, 3. Okay, wait me a little bit because I have to take another one. And 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much. I think we have, yes, a lot of questions in the chat, but I will try to search for like similar questions or something.
Sam, would you like some of the people will ask them? I think we have many interesting people there, like Jessica
Yes.
Corman. I know her, and I know Daniel. He can also ask and make just small questions. We know we have this time, but if you would like them to ask them directly, Sam, what do you think about it?
Yes,
Because
I think
conversation, I think it will be interesting.
Of course. I'm trying to see what question it's the first one.
Jessica Corman was the first one.
Okay, Jessica, do you want to?
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, Silvia. Thank you very much. I think you are a great human being. My question is if you have any siblings or close relatives, and what do they thought about you writing the book and dig into the story of your grandfather, and what do they think about the book? Thank you.
Hi, Jessica. Thank you. I have a brother in California, and he's been very supportive, and he's read many versions of the book. And he has been going along in this journey with me, and I've been keeping him informed, and he's been very good about it. So he has been very supportive. My father wishes I didn't write the book. His brothers wish I didn't write the book. So I guess it's, you know, a generational thing at this point. So my father and his generation are not happy with it. But my generation and maybe younger are more willing to look at it and deal with it.
Can I ask a question after?
Do it, Jessica. Do it.
How is your relationship with your father because of this?
It's okay. You know, it hasn't been really that strange because of this. I mean, he has his own life. He remarried. So he's remarried. He's older. He's 85 now. And you know, God bless him. It's fine. He, you know, it's not like he disowned me or anything over this, but he's been pretty mildly against it, but it hasn't been, you know, I think his peers are asking him, what is your daughter doing? What is going, I mean, I'm sure he must get that, but he doesn't really pass it along.
Okay, thank you very much.
Silvia, don't tell them everything. Tell them about your father and everything. They can read it also in your book. And many people are asking about the book to know more of the inside of this history. Can you tell us a little bit where can they find it, the name, or where can they find it? I know in Mexico you are presenting it this week in the book fair, but people are wanting to know if there is a book and where can they find it and the name. Just a little bit before we continue with a question from the public.
Well, I don't know if you have a picture of the Spanish version.
Here it is. Not just the
Yes.
picture. I have the book in
I
here.
can show it. Okay, I will
The
show it.
Spanish version came out before the English version.
That's
So
what
here it is. Mi abuelo, el General Storm, Héroe de Guerra o Criminal Nazi. You can see a picture of him there next to the typewriter. My brother, who's an engineer, he goes, but you didn't type it on that typewriter. Why do they have that typewriter on that photograph? So this is available in Mexico now and in all the major bookstores, as I understand it, and you can get it on Amazon, Mexico. The Spanish version will be available in the United States in about 3 months, I've been told. But the English version is going to be available March 9th.
All right. I think Daniel has a question.
I have also a
would you like
question,
to ask
Anna
them?
Gallicot.
Sorry, Anna, let Daniel, later Anna, and Sam is going to give words about it.
Silvia, during your research, have you done anything regarding how you get in touch with any survivors, with anything regarding the Lithuanian community? Is there a project to try to revive what he killed?
Revive?
Well, write about them, what they were. I mean, they were the central community for Jewish culture and resistance before the war. They were a very small community, but they were the intelligence of the Jewish communities at that point.
There is in Tel Shay, a Lithuanian, a Jewish Lithuanian who wrote a book about the Jews in Tel Shay. So, and then he is working with the Tel Shay community in reviving the stories of the Jews there. And I would like to do that. You know, we're launching a new website, jonasnoreka.com, where we're going to have his museum of all the documents that he signed and that came across his desk. And you know, as that, there are Lithuanians in Lithuania who would like to make those sorts of connections and have that moving. So it is my hope that that can happen.
Maybe you and Grant want to do something about the other side of the story. Meaning it's very important what you discovered and what you brought up. Maybe you want to dig in and come out on the other side of the tunnel.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. I think Anna, yes, Anna has another question.
I just wanted to know if you know something about the Jews in Las DJ that I perish, and I don't know nothing about that Lithuanian Jews, where all my family came, the Prusak family.
Which city, where?
Las DJ, Lithuania.
Oh, no, I don't know anything about that city. I really focus just on Plunge and Cholet mostly, and a little bit of Tel Shay and Jagare, which is kind of his trajectory of where he was involved. So I
thank you for your exposure. It's beautiful to hear you. And we will buy the book. I am here in San Diego when it arrived. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Okay, we have another question from Ron. Do you want to ask it?
Hi, Sylvia. I'd like to begin by congratulating you for your bravery. I think it takes a certain kind of person to be able to part ways from at least a part of your family's ideology and your heritage. Like it or not, it is your heritage. And I think it's important that you don't feel guilty. I think that you're not really responsible for what people have done before. You're responsible for what goes on ahead of you, what you're teaching your kids and the rest of the world now with a book that you're publishing. And I think it's very valuable because what the Jews, when the Holocaust survivors who are present here and others give their testimonies, a lot of it can be discounted. But when the grandchild of the actual perpetrator does it, then I think it adds value, you know, and gives credibility to the whole story and what happened. My actual question was, what I'm curious about, when your grandfather and the 45 Lithuanians were imprisoned, and they had to share quarters with Jews in the concentration camp. Do you know if his attitude or their attitude as a group has changed towards the Jews at that point?
You know, my grandfather was a writer, and so I was reading and hoping maybe I would find some kind of writing of remorse about his attitude, and I did not find it. They were also in separate barracks from the Jews. They did not share the same barracks as the Jews. They had separate barracks. And they were treated differently. They were treated as honorary prisoners. So they did not have, except for those first 6 weeks, they were treated like the Jews, but then after that, they were treated much better. And they were even called the aristocrats of the Studhof concentration camp because their lives were so much more greatly improved since then. So I have not seen any evidence of that afterwards, at least in my grandfather.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer. I think Amy has another question, but before that, I want to read this comment of Leora that she's saying, there are some interesting projects about Lithuanian Jews. This is one, and it's very interesting. This one is very interesting, and she put a link on the chat if anyone wants to check it. But yes, I don't know if Amy wants to ask the question she wrote, or I don't know.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry, my camera is not working, sorry.
Don't worry.
Yes, I just wanted to ask you, thank you very much for what you're doing. For us, it's very interesting. And as a granddaughter of survivors, I think it's really nice to hear that people are taking responsibility of the things that happened. I just want to ask you, as you were growing up, what was your family input about Jews in general? And of course, within your family, what do they feel about the veracity of the Holocaust?
I would say when I was growing up, there was at least some mild anti-Semitism, some mild disparaging comments against Jews. I did not even know about the Holocaust in Lithuania until I started researching this book.
Oh, that's interesting.
I did not even know Lithuania had a Holocaust. And I went to Lithuanian school here, and you know, on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. every Saturday. And we all talked about Siberia, how Lithuanians were sent by the communists to Siberia and they suffered there. That's all I knew about. I had no idea that there were Jews who died in Lithuania. That's how ignorant I was. So that's what makes me think that it was an intentional cover-up, because it was just never brought up. It was just never brought up.
Thank you very much.
think we have another question. This is a such interesting question. I think she's not anymore here in the meeting, but I will ask for Yvonne. She was asking, were all the Jews in Lithuania really so successful to justify that level of hate?
Well, nothing justifies it. I mean, there's, no justification for it. It's the basest human instinct imaginable. That's just what I heard. So I'm sure they were not that successful. And even if they were, so what? More power to them. I mean, that doesn't mean you have to kill them.
Yes, exactly. I think that as Johnny had told us many times, hate is a poison. So that's what happened, when you hate, when you have this greed, this envy. That's why that's why I'm starting this project, because I want people to know about this, and also my generation to know about this. I think here in the meeting we have like 8 or 10 people my age. Maybe they don't have their cameras on, but it's so important for me, because even if they're 10, 8, 1, if one lesson keeps in their minds, in their selves, I think we are like fulfilling this purpose of not forgetting what happened, and to never let happen, to never happen again, this. So yes, I don't know if anyone has another question. I don't know if any young people want to ask something, a friend or something,
We have here the editor of the book in Spanish, Daniel Messina. I think he's with us also. Maybe he wants to tell a little bit about what was his experience when he wrote about the book and decided to publish it. Daniel, if you are there, you told me he was here. Just everybody to know, Silvia speaks a very fluent Spanish also. She will be giving the presentation of her book in Spanish next December the 2nd. We will have it also in Zoom for everybody who wants to hear about her story in Spanish or many other things, and about the book that is presented in Mexico. We will have her also with Samantha, and also in Spanish, and also in Diario Judío.
Yes, thank you so much. I don't know if anyone has another comment or question. You can do it right now, just before we end this meeting. I don't know, don't be shy. I want someone of
Grant, sorry, we know that you spoke about Grant, Silvia, and he's here. Do you want him to say something? Do you want him to complement something else? He didn't answer me if he wants, but I don't know if he wants to say just a little bit or something that it has to be with your story, because I think you have been working with him also, or do something together, no? Grant, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, just if you have a little bit, a short comment or something about Silvia's work.
I think Silvia Foti is one of the bravest people in the world. I'm sorry?
No, he's translating, but he has to make on. Keep speaking, Grant.
I think Silvia Foti is one of the bravest people in the world. I think she epitomizes human dignity. She's faced incredible adversity from the Lithuanian government, from Lithuanian people. And I think she shows us a way forward towards reconciliation, because reconciliation cannot come without truth. So she's faced down intimidation from the Lithuanian government in exposing truth about her grandfather. And if there were more people like Silvia, I think we could walk a new path into the future.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Okay, so yes, if we don't have any other question, I just wanted to, to ask, what do you?
I'm Daniel.
Yes.
Hola, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Daniel Messino. I work for HarperCollins Mexico. I'm here with my mother. we have already read, well, the book.
You
I
have
found,
to, you did it.
I found this amazing story 2 years ago in a book fair in Istanbul with an agent, and then this agent, she introduced me to Silvia's agent, and we decided to publish it in Mexico. So we are very happy to have Silvia here. I mean, I have email with Silvia, but this is the first time that I listened to her lively. So it was amazing. It really touched my heart. And Silvia, I would like you can share something in Spanish because she speaks Spanish also. So can you speak something in Spanish? Give a message to the Spanish audience, please.
Sí, cómo no. Mucho gusto estar aquí, Daniel. Muchas gracias por publicar este libro en español. El libro sale en español primero, antes de inglés, que dice mucho de su apoyo en este tema y en esta historia. Y estoy muy excitada por todo esto que está pasando y espero que la verdad va a salir. La verdad de la Holocausto en Lituania va a salir y que la gente va a saber lo que pasó.
Thank you so much, Silvia. And I hope also that the truth is will come out. We are very, very proud at HarperCollins for having this book. And as you can say, please, all our readers in Mexico, please share this story. The book is available now on the main bookstore chains, also on Amazon. And as Silvia said, the Spanish version is going to be available in the United States in 2 or 3 months. And please, thank you so much for trusting me, for your patience also, because it took 2 years to publish it after all these times. And for example, my mother, she's here, and she told me that this story helped her during this pandemic time, because it felt okay. We have going through different crises, but for example, right now we do have fear, but not the fear that the people from in the Holocaust suffer. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make the last question, but not for Silvia. I want to ask some young people, or girl or boy, if you want to, what do you think about Silvia's labor writing this book? Do you want to answer? Maybe Michelle, Magdalena, Juan, Gabby, Emily, Alicia. I don't know if you want to say something. Emily? Okay. I think you have the microphone off. Yes.
I'm sorry. I think I had a little bit of trouble. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say that there is absolutely no place for hate in this world, and that is something that happened before that made all these terrible situations. And hearing these stories makes you realize the power of truth in our generation, especially because of everything that's going on nowadays. You know, we can't compare the things that are happening now with the things that were happening before, but it is our job now to listen to these stories. We have the privilege of speaking to all these people, to survivors, to children of survivors, and tell the story to other people. And if we have kids, then we can carry on these stories. So I think that it is very brave of all of you to tell these stories, to get up and decide that, hey, I want to encourage these young adults or youth people to continue talking about what happened. Somebody was telling that it is true, there's going to be a moment when there is going to be more people who are not going to believe all of this happened. So it is now our job to tell these stories. And well, thank you for everything you've said, and thank you for your courage. I am very grateful for everything you've said.
I just want to say something. To prevent another Holocaust, to prevent to happen again, the key is education. And I want to thank very much Sam to participate in doing great job. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Johnny, for being always here and also for sharing your story, little parts of your story also in every interview. We honor you and thank you so much for being here. Johnny, also Eva, she's also a survivor, and everyone, all descendants of survivors that are here and all the people that listen to us. So I think we are going to finish this meeting, but I want to thank everyone for being here, and also to Isaac, to Diario Judío, for being in this meeting and for sharing this project that it's called The Voice of the Silence, because I want to give a voice, to those stories that that doesn't have a voice. So I don't know, Isaac, if you have an final comment.
Sure, I just want to thank Silvia. I want to, not just for the book, but for the courage to do it, and for the courage to do something that can change the history in a country, not just in a family, in a whole country, and give a new perspective for the whole world. Thank you very much, Silvia. We will see you again in these days with your presentation of the book in Spanish. We invite everybody to see it, and it will be a pleasure to hear again about you.
Thank you
Looking
so much.
forward to it.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Silvia. So we can say goodbye to Silvia and to everyone. If you can turn on your camera and say goodbye, will be nice.
Your poem, Samantha, you have your poem or not?
Well, not, but okay. Goodbye to everyone.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye and thank you all.
Thank you.
No puedo
Bye.
salir.